subscribing to Hampton Roads. My name is David Tortellini, and today's video is a bit of a random episode of various things that have been on my mind, including a small market update, video feedback, and new buyer representation rules, and how all of those things affect your ability to buy and sell here in Hampton Roads. Stick around, and we'll get right to it. Before we get started, don't forget to subscribe, and then please know I'm just a call, text, or email away when you're ready to get started with your next home purchase or sale here in the Hampton Roads region. Okay, let's start with the big news in the world of interest rates. I'm sure you know by now that the Federal Reserve lowered the Fed funds rate by 50 basis points last week. This is great news for all of us and should begin to jumpstart many sectors of the economy. But it's important to know that mortgage interest rates had already moved down in anticipation of the lowering of the Fed funds rate. And while mortgage interest rates and the Fed rate are correlated, they're not necessarily affixed to one another. So don't anticipate rates to go even lower just because of the rate reduction. Now, the Fed indicating future cuts could then lead to further reductions in the mortgage rate, since they generally move in anticipation of future Fed rate changes. And this is what you want to keep an eye on, because if they say more cuts are coming, rates will go down. But if the cuts don't happen, then the rates will bounce back up. But all in all, good news for everyone, and the more we see rates come down, the more affordable housing will be. In other market news, local housing inventory has made a huge comeback, and we're now up to over 5,000 homes on market throughout Hampton Roads. If you've watched my market update videos over the past year or so, you'll know that 5,000 homes on market is the target number that I've been waiting for. This is the number, in my opinion, that means sellers should still be able to sell fast, say within a week or two, while also giving buyers some options and not having to fight most of the time with a dozen other people for one single home. The best homes in the best neighborhoods, or homes that are just priced really well, are still going to sell extremely fast and should still get multiple offers. But most houses will see far less competition and will give buyers an opportunity to find a good home without having to do things like waive their home inspection or pay way above the appraisal price. Now, this inventory may be temporary. With the recent reduction in mortgage interest rates, we've already seen a spike in mortgage applications. This is exactly what we've been saying would happen ever since rates started rising in early 2023. People are starting to come back into the market, and if rates go down much further, we could see a flood of new buyers enter the market. They could easily burn through that inventory within just a few months, and by next spring, we could be right back to where we were a couple years ago with less than 2,000 homes on market throughout the region and bidding wars on just about every home. That being said, I think the sweet spot to buy a home is between now and the end of the year. I have a feeling spring is going to be pretty wild. And just one last thing on rates. If you bought in the high interest rate environment of the last 18 months or so, like I did with both my personal home and a rental property I purchased, then be ready to pull the trigger on a refi. If I can refinance at 2 points lower than what I purchased at on both properties, I should save around $600 per month. So you should be looking to do the same. Reach out to your loan officer and find out the cost to refinance and tell them you're going to be ready when the time is right. The other really big news in the world of real estate has been the new changes due to a recent lawsuit settlement by the National Association of Realtors. I'm going to do a much longer and more in-depth video on this in the next week or two, but I do want to quickly touch base on a couple of things that are really important for everyone to know. First, realtors are no longer allowed to show property, even video tours, without a signed buyer agency agreement in place. If we do, we can get in some serious trouble. The good news about Virginia is we've always had these agreements, so not much has really changed here, other than before they weren't mandatory prior to showing property. I've always been happy to do a few video tours or show a few houses without being formally hired while we get a chance to know each other a bit. Now we just need to do it up front. We have both long-term agreements and single-day or single property forms we can use that make things very simple and don't lock you into a long-term agreement if you don't want to be in one. The other thing you might be hearing is that sellers are no longer paying buyer's agents. Well, 6 weeks into the changes, and we haven't seen much of this around here at all. Most sellers are still advertising a buyer agent commission, while others are just saying to just include it in the offer. But I haven't run into one yet where they've said, absolutely not, you have to pay your own agent. So I really wouldn't worry about that happening. You deserve representation, and buying a house is already expensive enough without you having to come out of pocket for your own agent, and sellers know this. Again, keep an eye out for a much more detailed video on this very soon. It was recently brought to my attention that on my 20 historic names every Williamsburg resident needs to know video, that I somehow managed to exclude Rochambeau. This was a huge oversight on my behalf. I don't know how he didn't make the list, and Rochambeau will certainly be at the top of the list for part 2 one day. But for those who can't wait that long, the Comte de Rochambeau, born Jean-Baptiste Donatien de Vimeur, pardon my extremely bad French, was a distinguished French general who played a pivotal role in the American Revolutionary War. Born in 1725, Rochambeau rose through the ranks of the French military and was appointed commander of the French forces sent to aid the American colonies in the fight for their independence. In 1780, Rochambeau arrived in Newport, Rhode Island, with a contingent of around 6,000 troops. His strategic leadership was crucial in the Yorktown campaign, where he worked closely with General George Washington. Together, their combined forces trapped British General Lord Cornwallis at Yorktown, leading to the British surrender in 1781, which effectively ended major combat operations in the Revolutionary War and secured American independence. Rochambeau's collaboration with Washington cemented his legacy as a key figure in the Franco-American alliance and a hero of the American cause. Locally, Rochambeau Drive runs parallel to Route 64, passing just east of Waller Mill Park and Reservoir, and continues to run north until it intersects with Richmond Road at Anderson's Corner in Toano. Bruton High School, the high school for all of northern York County, is off of Rochambeau. So between that and taking it to get off and on of 64 during a trip to the outlets, just about everyone will travel on Rochambeau at some point. Next, I want to talk about feedback I receive on a lot of my Newport News and Hampton videos, and that's that I don't discuss crime in these cities. It's not that I'm ignorant to the issue or trying to avoid talking about it in an attempt to trick anyone to moving there or anything like that. I mean, heck, most of the people who reach out to me about moving to Newport News and Hampton or PCSing don't have a choice anyhow. But the real reason is that crime can be a very difficult topic for real estate agents to cover, and the liability aspect is too high for me to want to start throwing out numbers. And I certainly don't want to be mistakenly thought of as steering or discriminating if I suggest one part of town versus another. For these reasons, we're always taught to be the source of the source, but never the source. Now, I might currently live in Williamsburg, but I did live in Newport News for 14 years and have sold hundreds of homes throughout Newport News and Hampton. I get it. There are some rough parts, like some really rough parts, but there are also some really great parts too, and everything in between. But I can't be the one to tell you exactly which those are. It does frustrate me when I get a comment that says something like, the crime in all of Hampton is out of control, because it is largely dependent on where you live within the city. Same goes for Newport News. And because crime can be so random, I try not to say things like, this is a safe neighborhood or not a safe neighborhood. I don't want to be on video saying, live here because the crime is low, then have something eventually happen and it comes back on me, even if I'm not your agent. There are ways to do this, like I can reference websites in my videos like Spot Crime, but I'm not entirely convinced of the accuracy of third-party sites. And it seems if you're far enough along that you're watching my videos, then you also know how to look up crime info, and there's lots of information out there. Or we even suggest contacting a local police precinct to get their most up-to-date stats on where you're looking at homes. So that's my long-winded explanation, for better or worse, about why I don't talk about crime very often in my videos. Lastly, I'd like to toot my own horn here for a second. You can see I'm wearing my eXp Realty Icon Agent t-shirt. The Icon Award is given annually to the top producing agents in my company as we hit certain production milestones. And I've been with eXp for 4 years, and this is my 4th year in a row as an Icon agent. It's something I'm really proud of, and I'm extremely proud of the fact that I've been able to help so many of you who watch this channel, and that you've all become such a large and wonderful part of my business. Also, earlier this summer, I closed my 500th career transaction, which is something only a small percentage of realtors ever accomplish. So if you've been watching and you're curious if I'm just some guy on YouTube driving around neighborhoods, or if I actually know what I'm doing, I feel like I can honestly say I have the track record to back up the things I talk about on this channel. I'm out in the neighborhoods, doing the work, and serving my clients to the best I can, unlike a lot of people on the internet these days. One last thing I want to touch on is where I live versus where my license hangs and where our physical office is. So I live in Williamsburg and I work from home. That's where I am right now. This is our YouTube studio and our home office. But my license hangs at an eXp branch office in Newport News. So you'll see this 827 Diligence Drive address on this YouTube site, on my branded website. This is where I have to legally advertise. This is the address that has to be on everything. Now, I don't actually maintain my own space there, but we do have conference rooms there. So if I meet clients who are coming in from Newport News or Hampton, a lot of times we'll meet there at that actual office location. But for everybody coming into Williamsburg, I live here. It's just so much easier if we meet here in Williamsburg at a coffee shop or a restaurant or something like that, because it's just not worth driving all the way down to Newport News for us to meet, then to come all the way back here. But I do live in Williamsburg, have an office in Newport News. That gives me a great location away from home for when I need to work down that way. And I can work from home when I'm here, and we can just go to coffee shops when you come to visit for Williamsburg. All right. So just really wanted to clarify that. I know there's been a little bit of confusion about where I live and where the office is and where you need to go and all that kind of stuff. Okay, that's it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. My mother is in town from New Hampshire, which is where I grew up. So I didn't have time this week for a really big neighborhood video or multiple neighborhood video. But as always, if you have any comments or questions, please leave those below and I'll reply to them as soon as possible. And don't forget to like this video and share my channel with anyone you know who may be moving to the Hampton Roads area. And of course, subscribe. If you're making a move to anywhere in Southeastern Virginia, call, text, or email. My team and I are here and ready to help. Again, my name is David Tortellini. Thank you so much for watching.